Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by saying it's such a tremendous pleasure being amongst such tremendous innovators here at LSI. So I'm Divya. I'm the co-founder for Project AiCCESS. Let's get started. Imagine undergoing a surgery. And then, instead of focusing on your recovery, you're worried or you're anxious about developing a surgical site infection. This thought is a reality for millions of people. We do about 330 million procedures each year. Of that, about 20% develop surgical site infections. That's 62 million people developing surgical site infections. They're also 20% of all healthcare-acquired infections. Our mission is to prevent surgical site infections through AI-enabled surgical site prediction, early detection, and management. There is a huge market opportunity here. Just in the United States, it's a $90 billion problem. The serviceable available market is $18 billion, and the sum here is 10. Even if we were to achieve a modest 30% reduction in surgical site infections, hospitals and healthcare systems can save between $9 and $27 billion. Now, the question is, why is it such a big problem? It's because the surgical journey is flawed. Preoperatively, we're not looking at predicting the risk of surgical site infections at all. The first time we look to do that is intraoperatively. Now, intraoperatively, this is right before the surgeon is about to close the wound. And what are we doing? We're using subjective assessment. The wound looks pretty clean. Let's close it. Oh my God, this is dirty. Let's not close it. This is a 60-year-old method that was developed by CDC. We've made no progress whatsoever. The other thing is, post-operatively, when the patient is out, we're asking the already overwhelmed nurses and residents to look at the wound twice to see if there are any signs of surgical site infection. So is there any redness? Is there any pus? And if you look to your right, on a lighter skin tone patient, redness, much more easier to identify. On a darker skin patient, on the other hand, so much more complicated. It's not the best situation. Once, say you are able to identify a surgical site infection, surgeons at this point prescribe antibiotics by ignoring all national and local guidelines, which leads to the problem of increased antimicrobial resistance. That in itself is a separate $100 billion market. The other problem is that once you've discharged the patient, and the next time you meet the patient is ideally 2 weeks after, but there are just about always conflicting scheduling issues, which leads to the patient not being in the hospital for at least 3 to 4 weeks after. About 80% of all communities just in the United States don't have access to an infectious disease specialist. About half the counties don't have access to a specialized surgeon. That should tell you the need of remote post-discharge care. That's where AiCCESS steps in. We are trying to develop the world's first SSI prediction, early detection, and management model. So who are we? This project is led by Dr. Mayur Narayan, the division chief of acute care surgery at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson, and myself. What we've done is developed a massive consortium of the 16 most prestigious national academic centers and a growing collaboration of international organizations as well. We have about 60 surgeons who specialize in surgical artificial intelligence. We have data scientists pioneering computer vision. We have ethicists. We have people from the FDA. And we have a very impressive advisory board, including the executive director of American College of Surgeons, Dr. Patricia Turner, Dr. L.D. Britt, who's the father of surgery, and Dr. Heather Evans, who's the current president of Surgical Infection Society. Now, what are we doing? We are unique in the way that we collect all the variables from the patient's perioperative journey, preoperatively, intraoperatively, postoperatively. So this is, instead of all the point solutions, this is an end-to-end solution. What we're doing with all that data is we're putting it into our IP-protected explicit framework, which is unique in two ways. One, unlike every other AI model, it's not giving you a black box recommendation. It's giving you an explainable reason. Oh, hey, there were 17 people more than usual in your OR. The door opens so many more times, the risk of this patient developing surgical site infections is so much more higher. And the second unique thing about what explicit framework does is that it integrates domain knowledge. Not only is it learning from the patterns that the data has, but also from all the knowledge that we as surgeons develop over a million-year training period. Now, given that we're collecting such a unique set of data, which is so comprehensive, we're also creating the first of its kind surgical repository from all these 16 institutions and international institutions, which gives everybody the opportunity to not just create this one solution, but so many more. And finally, when we leave it up to our naked eye to identify surgical site infections, it's complicated. It's not objective. But if you leave it up to technology to identify those signs and symptoms, it's much more equitable. Now, what are we doing? I know this is a lot, but let me walk you through it. We collect data that hasn't been collected before. So operating room traffic, thermal images, intraoperative videos, and then give prediction of surgical site infections, early detection, and then if the risk of the patient is higher, then we give them a predictive prescription component of whether or not the patient requires antibiotics. If they do, then which one, at what dose. The patients are actively involved in this, as in they will take images and report symptoms at particular intervals, and that is all also fed into the model. We've built an alpha version of this model with 70,000 patient data points already. We're currently running a pilot at Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. We started December 1st, and we've already met 35% of our recruitment. Early data shows that the benefits are spread across every stakeholder. The patients we've seen, instead of identifying surgical site infections at day 7, we identify them at day 2. The length of stay has decreased massively. There's very less morbidity and mortality, fewer readmissions and reoperations. For a surgeon, it has provided real-time clinical decision support, decreased time to diagnosis, decreased cognitive workload. And for the hospital, most importantly, it has reduced the resource utilizations. CMS has penalties if you have higher surgical site infection rates. You don't get reimbursed by Medicare for the extra costs. So that's a massive improvement for the hospital. We've also developed a fully available app which was available on iOS. And we've trialed it on 70 patients, and the patients are very happy with it. Where we are currently is that we applied for an ARPA-H grant. Earlier in the year, we got preliminary approval. But given the federal uncertainties, we are now looking to develop relations with potential investors who would like to invest before we open up a seed round. We've already completed all regulatory requirements with all the 16 sites and a few sites globally as well. And we have amazing partners that support us. Again, today we invite you to partner with us. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This is all my contact, and this is Dr. Narayans. Thank you so much for your time.